All right, so welcome to the panel. This is, we titled this, actually I titled it about 20 minutes ago, 5 Lessons I Was Forced to Learn in Game Audio, because...
we watched a great TED Talk from George not too long ago about a very similar topic.
Yeah, so first off, let me start by saying George Sanger's influence is hard to overestimate. Through his work, his writings, the founding of think tanks, organizations, and communities, but mainly his music, this legendary game audio guru's fingerprints are all over much of what it means today to create game audio or listen to a game. I stole this from some website. I do want to come clean. I'm not good.
Let's just abandon the boilerplate and just say you are a larger-than-life personality. We have grown up with your music and your fabulous suits.
Yes.
You have been a presence in the game audio world for so long, and we are very, very proud to have you here with us, George. Thank you so much.
Yes.
You guys were worth dusting off the suits for.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I do want to come clean here. I'm awful at slide decks. So luckily, George gave a great presentation in 2018 in Montreal. So I happily stole a bunch of snippets from that. His talk was really good. You should go back and listen to it. It's called 5 Things I Refuse to Learn in 35 Years of Game Audio. We're 40 years in now because it's been 5 years. And so we're going to ask the tough questions. Again, I don't know if there's anything you can learn in game audio. I don't know. You tell us.
I'll let you know.
Yeah. So real quick, for those who don't know us, Pixelated Audio, we're a video game music podcast. We're long running. We've been doing it for like 8-9 years. We've had composers on and just a lot of really influential people. So George is, right there in good company. In addition to music, we talk about game, the context, developers, stuff like that. We try to have fun, and we really love what we do. Game audio preservation is something that we're really passionate about. And we've covered stuff from popular to obscure, every platform you could possibly think of. And we gave a talk about the evolution of game audio at the Library of Congress several years back before the pandemic. And that was a lot of fun. So we've had so much time to really learn from the people that came before us and talk about what inspired them and what made them take the paths that they did in their career. And this is our mascot. It is a tooth man.
Yes, for those of you who are longtime listeners of the show, you may remember Harold Hardtooth, which is a Colgate-branded game, which we covered just for fun. Amazing music, and it's now sort of stuck around. So he's become our unofficial mascot.
We totally missed the opportunity to put like a nudie suit on him.
Oh, yeah, that would have been fun.
Oh, man. All right.
But enough about us. What's next?
All right, so this is a really good clip art montage that I made. One thing I want to say, George has plenty of opportunity to talk, but there's something I took from his website that was archived that I thought was really good. This is a bio that I'd like to read for you real quick. When the fat man writes his own bio, it goes something like this. The fat man is a big-hearted alien who wears the skins of cowboy heroes whose bodies have been found in the desert. He finds it to his liking to hover over Austin in a huge radar-cloaked Zeppelin, composing music for games with his legendary team of cowboy composers, Team Fat. His work on hit games has more than once changed the face of game music. People magazine call him a top candidate for the most prolific and obscure living American composer. Yet he consumes only ammonia and uncooked brown rice. His rates remain reasonable, and he's very well liked and very well behaved.
All of that is 100% true. Every single word.
So, yeah, this is just like a little clip that I just thought was funny. This is like embodies the fat man right here. It's a little tiny clip. There's no audio or anything. It's a GIF actually, and I just loved it so much that I was like, oh yeah, it's better than TikTok. This right here, I wanted to bring this up. This was a hard slide to make, and the reason why you can't read anything on this is because this is all games that George, or companies that George has worked with over the years, and this is not even a complete list. And it's, I couldn't actually fit all of this stuff on the page. I ran out and I had to make the font smaller and smaller and smaller, and I thought, well, I'm going to show it anyway. So
I am narrating for those on the recording. George is attempting to look at it with his glasses. I am closer. I'm a little younger. I still could barely read this. It's an incredibly long list.
You can make a few out.
All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
XB, now cover your left eye. First off, George, tell us a little bit about yourself, if that wasn't enough already.
I got nothing left.
You got nothing left?
Hi, everybody. I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome. So happy to have
Great
you.
story.
So George got his humble beginning composing music for an Intellivision game called Thin Ice. And we have a clip here that I want to play. Let's just take a quick listen. This is actually called Surfin' on Thin Ice, which was re-released. Really cool. Let's take a quick listen to that. It's a jam.
Thin ice.
I don't have a fade out, so it's just going to be a broad. Anyways, so that was Surfing on Thin Ice, and this was re-released for the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox 2003-2004 for Intellivision Lives. Could you tell us about your humble beginnings working for, or getting started with game audio, and how you started with the Intellivision?
Yeah. Okay, so there I was in school, Occidental College. I was getting a music degree, and a little bit over my head musically in a lot of ways. But I was in the rock band, and we were going to make it. And the goal was to figure out what it was about. Why did we feel so different when we heard Beatles music and when we were exposed to that sort of love? And what is the thing that they were bringing to the table that stood out? And I don't know if everybody has this with the Beatles, but they have it with their own music. There's some artist that's like, this is speaking to me. This is magic. The sky has opened up, and they are a conduit for something. What is that thing? And so part of the prime directive was to figure that out and try to bring my version of it to the table. And one clue that came to me was, while avoiding work, I was doing, avoiding my studies, I was doing video games. And video games were a different thing. Okay? This is 1976, 7. We had Asteroids and Donkey Kong and Space Invaders. And it was just like amazing, but nobody was selling it to you. You'd go down to the laundromat or the grocery store. That's where I saw Missile Command. And you'd see this abstract, weird thing, and it's like you found it, over by the ice machine, and the fridge. And then you'd go tell your roommate and talk them into going to the grocery store with you, and then you would play this thing, and then you'd think about how to beat it, but there was no sort of culture, and there was no group of people talking about it. It was just like your discovery. And then we got a few of them in the cafe at the school, and I'd spend a lot of time playing those. And I thought, you know what? The Beatles were trailblazers in the area of rock and roll, and in rock and roll, a lot of the trees of that forest have been cut down. It's hard to be a trailblazer, but here in these games, this is something that young people are inextricably drawn to, and that parents don't understand, and that we're sort of passing around through our little subculture. And there's this draw to it, and it's new, and it's amazing, and I love this, and I want to get into it. So when I found out that my brother's roommate, after I graduated, my brother's roommate, Dave Warhol, was working for Intellivision, and I said, look, man, I will work for you for free. I'll take out trash cans. What do you want me to do? I want to get into this business. And he said, well, you are a musician, aren't you? And I said, well, to some extent. And he said, well, why don't you write me a 10-second tune for Ice Skating Penguins, which you just heard. It took me a long time to write that bad boy. I had a 4-track machine, and I did the bass line first and got a little bass line that I liked. I played it on guitar. And then I went back and punched in parts on the second track to do the melody. I got 0 keyboard chops. So that's how I did it. And once I got it to where I liked it, I tried to scroll down on manuscript paper, and I gave it to Dave, and he coded it. And my plan was to do it for free, but the lawyers said, we can't have this guy do it.
Got to pay him something.
Got to pay him something. It's illegal. So how much you want, George? So I said, $1,000. So I guess, I never heard this until recently, I guess they super got mad internally. And also what happened was I got my $1,000, which is, if you think, $1,000 for 10 seconds worth of music, what that is, per minute. And yep,
Paving the way.
Only time I got that. And so they went out of business. And then the brother of an ex-girlfriend hired me to do, he had done one of the first first-person shooters. Actually, it's something that John Romero was a big fan of, which was on the Atari 800. It was called Way Out. It was called Way Out, yeah. It just had like a spinning 8-bit obelisk, and you follow it around, and I guess you shoot at it. And then I did the sequel, which was Capture the Flag, which was a 2-player game. Split screen, so you see what the other person sees. And you try to go through the maze and capture the flag. And it had adaptive music in it. It was pretty cool. And then that was for Serious Software. They went out of business. And then I did some stuff for Atari for a demo. It was supposed to be the demo cartridge that would play in the stores. And then Atari went through a massive reorg. And that was sort of that was the great game crash, I guess, of 1984. So that was the start of it. That's the first big rise and fall. But we'll be back with Behind the Music right after this.
All right. Oh, and jumping a little, the timeline, it doesn't make any sense for this slideshow. So this was when you re-released or you redid the music, revamped it for this Intellivision Lives. There's this video that I just thought was so awesome. I'm not sure if what the story was here, but did they fly you out to Vegas or something?
They flew us out to Vegas, but not our equipment. So.
So who was involved in the band for this?
That's Team Fat, Daddy-O. That's my legendary team of cowboy composers right there. Someone had Compton's New Media was way back in the day was doing we were doing Berenstain Bears games for them and other things, and they flew us out for a new media conference or something like that, and they said, George, do your solo act. And I'm like, I don't have anything I can do. Will you fly my guys out and rent us some equipment? And they said, sure. And I said, can we do surf music? And they said, sure. So I taught the guys a set of surf music, and that became kind of a shtick that we did. But that guy on drums was the main composer for, I looked around and it was like, he plays bass, he plays guitar, and that guy used to play drums. He was a champion timp player for at UT. So we put a little band together, but that guy on drums is the main wing commander guy. They were all my composers. They were my team. They were my best buddies, and it was very much like it was like the Monkees, only real life. We were living in a tree house, and Mom and Dad weren't coming home anytime soon. It was like the fun part of the Beatles' help. So we were living the dream.
When you went to this, were there other performances or
no? There were barely. This is weird. You're not going to believe this, but there were barely any other people who did music for games. When I went to my first game developer conference, computer game developer conference, I was the only person who did music for video games.
Wow, we've come so far.
Now there's a whole event dedicated to it. So
yeah.
Let's see here. Oh, not that one.
I should say their names, but people can look at it. It'll come up.
Okay.
Oh, so I specifically requested this because there's a bit of a, I don't know, what would you say? Is this a meme, Brian? the Rad Gravity music? I mean, there's so much we could talk about, but people still kind of look at this quizzically whenever they hear it. Play the tune, Brian.
Yeah. Rad Gravity. All right, 1 second. Where is the mouse? Oh, there we go.
See, I thought you were going to play the other thing. That's just a classic surf rock tune.
Yeah,
I can hear it. It's right there.
Yeah, that one.
I clearly put the wrong date on there. I just copied from another slide, but this is for the NES. Rad Gravity. Yeah, Gene. Why did you want this one on?
So there's a title song that just sounds like you went crazy. You know, it's like it's too fast. There's wonky sounds. It sounds like the Simpsons theme song. It's like I don't know if I hit my head or if this is how it's supposed to sound. We'll have to comp that into the track unless you can bring that up real quick, Brian. What happened with this game? Because it sounds a lot like Maniac Mansion, and then it's like this hits you. You know?
Man, no. I'm very pleased that you brought this up, and I would love it if you could try to find that thing.
Yeah. Bring that up, Brian.
So the world's worst video game music, and I will explain myself. Dave Warhol disappeared for years after the crash, and then he came back and he said, "Are you still charging $1,000?" and I said, "No, I've been humbled by life, and right now I'm doing karaoke tunes on this device that I found called an MT32. Nobody thought of it as a game sound card." And I said, I now write, I don't know if you guys remember Earl Scheib, but he said, "I'll paint your car for $29.95 or less." And then he would, every couple of years, he'd raise the price. So I took that approach. I said, "I will do your song, any song, for $29.95. And I was doing karaoke. I was doing, tunes for voice teachers, music -1. And I said, "No, I've been humbled." And I started doing tunes for, I was up to $49.95, I think, by the time I started working with him again. So we did a few games, but for that one, he said, "I really want you to go crazy." He said, "I want you to make their ears bleed." And he was a big fan of the Bullwinkle tune and the Simpsons tune.
Yeah,
I was too. And he goes, "Give it everything." And I said, "I'm going to make their ears bleed." I said, this one's my Stravinsky piece. I want them to set fire to the theater seat. They're not going to understand this until decades from now. And so the bass line, well, if you can find it.
Let me see. What am I looking for here?
Just look at the theme to Rad Gravity, or you could just look at World's Worst Video Game Music, George Sanger.
There's like covers and everything.
Yeah,
This
there's
is great.
covers. There's some good covers.
Did you find it, Brian?
Just the title theme?
Yeah.
So the opening is
Everyone knew
12
who
tone,
the
but
family was.
it's broken 12 tone, I think. I'm not sure. If you guys with fast ears, you can determine if it's proper 12 tone. So it's just a bunch of cluster and stuff. And then under the bottom of it, there's which is Uncontrollable Urge by Devo, or there's a Led Zeppelin tune, Dancing Days. So it's from that, and then it does a little bit of an opening that is like the opening to the Jetsons.
There it is.
Yeah, that's
a reaction
video. This is the one I thought I put on here too.
Yeah, that's the habanero from Carmen. Bad loop. All right. What more do you want from a video game tune? Come on, guys.
Oh, that's great.
It's memorable. It's really exciting. You know,
I saw somebody describe it in a YouTube comment that said it's like a hot mess of 8-bit sound that just somehow works so beautifully.
Oh,
So-
yeah. I love that you never go halfway with any of this.
Oh, it's great.
You know?
That one was not halfway.
All right, so moving on here.
That's just a YouTube problem. Don't
Oh,
worry.
that's just a YouTube problem.
Thank you for looking that up.
Oh yeah, of course. And that was the one I was wanting to play, and I think just I put the wrong link in there. So this is something you're pretty well known for is Wing Commander.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so I wanted to make sure we played some of this. Let's take a quick listen and then tell us about Wing Commander. One of the reasons why I wanted to pick this specific game and this specific song is because I think it really showcases some of the work that you did with General MIDI, and especially on the MT32. So I was hoping you could share some insight about your like the way that your career started shaping when you started to get into more like the General MIDI and the influence you had on that.
Okay, this is pre-General MIDI. This is the first time I ever thought about orchestral music in any way at all. So that was my experimentation to see if I could do anything that had any of that vibe to it. The melody of that comes from the theme music, which Dave Govett, that drummer, wrote. This game was the first time that anybody tried to do a movie-like game score in the style of John Williams, because we were asked by Chris Roberts to do music, something like Star Wars or the Star Trek movie, and so it's kind of a landmark that way. And actually, for a year or two after that, I'd get calls from other game composers saying, "Our client is telling us to do music in the style of George Sanger and Dave Govett. How do we start?" That? So that was odd. I eventually walked away from the orchestral thing because I don't know, there's stories there. I gave the reins to the other guys who are really in that scene. But thanks for asking about that. So that's kind of the musical side of it. The technical side of it, like I said, I was writing these karaoke tunes on this very cost-efficient, multi-instrumental box called the MT32. And I was just doing that, with nothing to do with games, but I had been asked to use it as a sound card for the game before this. Pretty sure that's chronologically how it worked. To do Loom, which was all the soundtrack from, it was 7 movements from Swan Lake. So I guess that MT32 was being used as a sound card. So I got very familiar with the device. And then when this came up, it's like all of a sudden the thing that I'm familiar with is being used as a sound card, but you had to write special files for it. A couple of games later, SSN 221 Seawolf, I was having to write these short pieces for like 6 different sound cards, and it was a total drag. It was much more technology than it was composing. So I was talking to the guys at Roland because I was trying to scam my way into a co-promotion. Oh my God, it was going to be great. We were going to do an Avatone sound sheet. Do you guys know what that is? It's a plastic record that goes in a magazine. Oh. And I thought you feature my music because I'm the only guy writing for these, for this MT32. I'm making you guys a lot of money. So, let's promote my music at the same time that we're promoting your devices. Come on, we'll go halvesies on this. But in that discussion, I was making my complaint to Tom White, who was working there at the time, and he said, well, why don't you just write for General MIDI? And I said, well, what is that? He says, well, it's this one standard that'll sound good on all different sound cards. I said, well, how do I do that? He said, just write for a sound canvas. Well, sound canvas. So I did that for the 7th Guest, and that was the first General MIDI game. Mm-hmm. Then General MIDI, then it ships, and it sounds great on a sound canvas. Then other General MIDI cards start shipping, and it sounds like crap.
Yeah, I definitely got one of the ones that didn't sound so good.
Yeah, and I felt really bad. And I didn't know what to do because people were calling me up. The sound card companies were calling me up and saying, "Hey, I had this. Can you endorse our sound card?" And I'm like, "I can't. It sounds shitty." And I thought that. And I was picturing my face right on the box. And it's
Seal
like,
of approval, just.
yeah, well, I can't do it. So I created a company that did seal of approval. That's what we ended up doing, the fat seal of approval.
Yep.
And we never made money on it, but we put ourselves in this odd position of my publicist, Teresa Spanky, bless her heart, she put out one of our newsletters that said, "The Fat Man declares a new standard for video game music." And you just don't do that in a community, right? So all the legitimate standards people got all pissed at us, and we ended up explaining, then joining those industries, and then eventually that led to our running think tanks and being very heavily involved and being really great friends with a whole ton of those guys. And actually at those think tanks, a lot of these significant advances in audio hardware and software came into being because we had a place where it was called Project BarBQ. 50 people would meet every year on a ranch in Texas. We got them out from under the fluorescent lights. We got them drunk. We had equipment set up to jam. Sound familiar?
Oh.
And a lot of cigars. It was a little bit of a white man fest. We tried to break it up. We hopefully, we moved away from it incrementally as much as we could, but at the beginning it was a smoke-filled room, and I'm sorry, we'll try to do better. And it was away from the prying eyes and ears of the lawyers, because somehow people were able to justify to their companies that they would go to this place. I mean, a person from Roland and a person from Yamaha may not meet in a McDonald's or anywhere else. The lawyers will find out, and they will get in big trouble. We had Microsoft, we had IBM, we had AMD, we had Dolby and DTS, DBS. We had all the different competing companies, and they were able to get their standards together and make advances. That was a long-winded explanation of the Wing Commander music.
I gotta ask a super random aside here.
I wish you would.
Is that you in Monkey Island in the suit there? In the nudie suit? I feel like you were such a big sort of presence in the games industry, and you were writing music, you worked for LucasArts. Did somebody say, why don't we just put George in as the salesman guy?
I forgot about that.
Stan.
I might just be, because I knew all those guys.
I feel like every time I see your photo, I'm like, am I thinking too much about this? This can't be right. But who else was dressing in,
Nobody
suits
else was dressing in suits like
and
that.
cowboy hats, right?
Yeah,
in 1990, 1980, whatever.
I mean, it was a trope still, but
Sure.
but I think I was the main part of that trope. I think.
At least in games,
And the sound team for that, we were good pals. I mean, it started at a jam. It started when after the Team Fat Surf thing, after the Compton's New Media, they pulled us out again for the next year, but they didn't want to fly us out. So I just started calling people that I'd heard of that had done music for games. And so I ended up putting this giant jam together, which was kind of the first game composers jam, I think. I mean, there might have been others in Japan and Europe. I was painfully oblivious to all what was going on there. But United States, we had Dave Havalosa, we had from Sega. We had
Peter McConnell, right?
Peter McConnell,
Yeah.
Michael Land from LucasArts. Al Lowe of Leisure Suit Larry was playing sax. He was their
I
first-
saw a photo of that on your site.
You saw that
that's
photo?
so cool.
Grainy.
Yeah.
There's a video somewhere. I don't know where it is.
Oh, we'll have to find
it
that.
might be at the UT archive. And Neil Grandstaff, who was a big. Anyway, it sounded great.
Yeah, Sierra, right? Yeah.
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 I have a track here called Putt in Tunisia. This is from Putt-Putt Goes to the Moon. This is actually one that Gene
I
grew
did,
up
yeah.
playing.
I don't want to make you feel old, but I was the right target demographic when this game came out. I was about 7, 8 years old, so I really loved this game a lot, actually. So I remember the music quite fondly.
Let's take a listen to Putt-Putt. Now, this is a remastered version, so it's a little different. either here or in the podcast that are going to have like a tear in their eye, like my childhood, like that was it.
The Putt-Putt series, for those of you that don't know, became like, it was one of those edutainment sort of series, and it kind of became like a little sub-brand. There were a dozen of these games, and I think your team worked on all of them, right, or most of them.
Oh, a couple of them here.
A couple of
there.
them,
A good handful. Putt-Putt saves the moon. Putt-Putt goes to the moon. Putt-Putt saves the zoo. Freddy Fish and the Missing Kelp Seeds. Pajama Sam 3. I think that was our swath there. And then and a couple of little junior encyclopedia things and things that they reused and puzzle games and stuff.
I specifically picked this track because you re-released, you remastered some of these soundtracks and you have them on your Bandcamp, which is really awesome. And not only that, you have the like all the credits, so you can see who worked on what. And this track was something that you composed, so I just wanted to ask you about it. Like how did you go about composing music for Putt-Putt and these other kind of edutainment series? What was the plan? What was the motivation? And where did you start?
I would always I'd look at the situation that I was composing for, and I usually, take a shower or blank my mind and then picture a movie that had that situation in it and just kind of listen and see what music was playing in my head. Is kind of my MO. Blank slate. But if I had been thinking about, like, well, I'm going to sit down and compose, if anything from my childhood or anything was exciting me, like in this case, if I called it Putt in Tunisia, I might have been thinking about a night in Tunisia, which, I might have been going, okay, I want to capture some of the magic of that, or I'm excited about that. So a lot of times I would, if I'm thinking a Bo Diddley beat, I would name something Bo Diddley, and I kind of start from there, and then do it wrong. Which, so I'd like shoot for, the tunes that I listen to. I listen to a lot of, West Side Story and Stan Freberg and Alan Sherman and these big band comedy things. Calypso and show music, and then I would start with whatever really turned me on, whatever made me sit up in bed, and I'd try to marry that to the situation that I was writing for. And there were some technical interesting things on Ghost of the Moon, because we only had MIDI then. I can't remember exactly what form it took, but and I can't remember, actually I can't tell if this one was one that I wrote myself and quantized and did myself, or if I had the team playing on it. But I got a group of musicians together and had them play MIDI input instruments. So I got my brother's drum triggers hooked up, and I got a guy playing bass on piano on a keyboard, and then I got this other keyboard player, Floyd Domino, who is so good that they wrote the score for Best Little Whorehouse in Texas around his style of playing.
Oh, wow.
And he had worked at Asleep at the Wheel. He had been in that band. Someone called, the guy who composed that, called up the head of Asleep at the Wheel and said, do you know anyone who plays piano like Floyd Domino? Because I need someone in the pit band. I wrote this thing around Floyd Domino's style. And he goes, well, Floyd ain't doing anything right now. So Floyd, talk about an easy gig. He got to sit in the pit and play music that was written around his style. So Floyd's was one of my secret weapons for that kind of thing. So that was the first, I guess, musician, live musicians to MIDI game soundtrack anyway, as far as I know. I'm happy to be told I'm wrong. But let me expose something here. We were actually dominating, my little team was dominating PC game music in the United States. I think, and I'm seeing emphatic head nods. I might be wrong, and let me say, there was no internet. All I got was what I got out of Computer Gaming World, which mentioned us a lot of times and a lot of things. We run kind of like the first awards for this stuff. Loom and Wing Commander were up for the same first award at a GDC for Best Soundtrack. But I was utterly oblivious. And so I didn't know what was happening in Europe. I didn't pay attention to anything that was in Japan. And so my self-worth was really inflated. So I thought, you know, I used to say arrogant shit, like, you know, we are number one and, on video. We're
that's
number
great.
one, and there's nobody in second place, there's nobody in third place, maybe in fourth place. I mean, awful.
You can say that when you're wearing the suit, for sure.
Yes, and I said it while I was wearing the suit and while I was endorsing sound cards. And I'm sorry, I apologize for any toes I stepped on. It's not true. And one of the things that I realized in a long life is that when you think you're the amazing, and when you think you're doing everything first and that you're the best, you're probably not. But also, when you think you're worthless and that everybody else is, you know, is so much better than you, and that you never amounted to anything, you're probably wrong there too. You know, it's somewhere in the middle. But isn't it fun, you know, to do the ups and downs?
Yeah.
But not to pump your ego up again, but I do want to say you guys just had a really novel approach. I mean, you collected a sound team of musicians. You called it Team Fat. What great branding, for starters. And I mean, you guys, even with the technology limited, you could just feel the injection of musicianship and performance, and it just took the technology a little while to catch up. So
my vision was to take this music, and every gig I had to pump Joe up. He was, you know, he's a great musician, but he's really into that band thing. And, you know, game musicians, I met very few of them in the early days. And one of them that I met, he said, you know, I said, well, do you protect this stuff? Do you copyright it and things like that? I mean, what do you do? And he said, no. He said, I don't care about this stuff. If I wrote something good, you think I'd give it to these guys? And that was a general attitude. It's like, why are you writing music for games? It's like we're writing music for a toaster or something. You're throwing your life away. And so I even at the Putt Zoo time, you know, I would have to talk Joe into this concept that, you know, look, we're in on the ground floor of a thing, and I had pictured it being like hippie music, like Woodstock. It was going to be a big, beautiful, artistic explosion. It was just going to be flowers and friends and psychedelic and artistic, creative collaboration, and this is where it's going to go. And it went, a lot of it, where I could influence it, I tried to, and I feel very gratified that a ton of it went in that direction. Some of it didn't, but you know, that was our attitude, and so I had to say, you know, Joe, give it your all. Do this like you're exploring a new, you know, like you're Devo, and you're doing it for a cause, and you're going to make up something new that nobody else has done, and maybe people will buy it, maybe won't, but it's going to be amazing.
yeah, you know, I think that is the prevailing philosophy. I mean, it won't air yet, but our last episode that we just recorded, our guest. Should we talk about this, Brian? Or maybe
why
just
not?
give it- We just did a composer interview with a person who does music for adult games, and they were very excited about it. They gave it their all. The music is wonderful, and you know what? I wouldn't expect it any other way. We wouldn't be talking to them if they just sort of phoned it in. So it doesn't matter what you're working on. I love that philosophy.
Well, I love you.
Well,
thank you.
And it's, you know, I was thinking, like, the stuff that you were responsible for bringing up here, you know, these think tanks, these jam sessions, stuff like that. Yeah, that wasn't happening in the U.S. There were similar things happening in Japan, and similar things happening in Europe. But the fact that you organically went that direction with all these other continents and countries that had kind of similar visions, I think that's pretty awesome. So for us in the States, you were that forerunner to get these kind of things off the ground. And I think a lot of the other composers in the U.S. now owe a lot of credit to what you got started, because I don't think it would be nearly as important in where it is now.
Yeah, and I mean no disrespect when I say this to anybody, but when in the early days of video game music, there are not many names that people can think of, and yours is pretty well known. And you know, it took a while, and we have so many great American composers now, but throughout the 80s and the early 90s, I think there's maybe 5 people that people really know. So you know, you've made a lot of impact.
Thanks, man. You know, and it doesn't come from me by any means. The way you can, you know, my sort of rule of thumb for tapping into it, you know, is not necessarily music related. If you get an idea or a feeling, or just you sit up in bed and you're like, this thing came to me. I could, when I was deciding what kind of car to buy, it's like I could spend my budget on the new Bug, at that time. That doesn't really turn me on, but it's okay. And then one night I woke up and I said, what if I spent that much money for a new Bug on a used car? I wonder if I could get like a Rolls Royce. and I got these goosebumps, right? And I'm like, that would be really stupid. It'd probably be really an old beat up Rolls Royce, but I could drive my kids to the Cub Scout meetings, like to the campouts. What is more beautiful and tragic and dramatic than a beat up Rolls Royce? And what's the worst that could happen? It could like rust in our backyard, and my kids could say, where did all the money go, Daddy? I could say, well, that car in the back that you guys play on, the one up on the bricks, that's where it went. And they'd be like, whoa, Dad, that's really weird.
I was trying to find an image of your Rolls Royce, the one with the bull horns on the front.
Bull horns on the front. Good, bad.
Oh, I can't find it. Too bad. We'll have to post a link somewhere.
It's just honestly, it's just such a beautiful way of looking at life. I think it's so easy to play it safe and be like, oh, I'll get the economy car. I'll do the practical thing. I'm not saying you're doing super impractical things, but like, live loud. Why not?
Yeah.
What are we all doing here? We're,
Well, my heroes at the time were kind of like, I was a little bit manic, and my I was a big fan. I didn't have kids for most of this, and I was kind of leaning toward Andy Warhol as a role model, and Andy Kaufman. Is that And so I was ready to do that kind of far out artistic stuff. I was ready to kind of lay it on the line and see what would happen. And you know what? I'm not advising that unless, I sort of am. If you're drawn to, you know what? When you sit up in bed and you get these weird ideas and you're on fire, I'm not saying do them. Because sometimes that means, if you got an illness, sometimes that means, spending all the money in the bank account and getting everybody pregnant. And people do that, so watch it. But I am saying pay attention, because maybe in some symbolic way, that's your muse. And we do not say no to the muses.
I'm trying to keep it together.
All right,
we got another track here. This is from The Seventh Guest. It kind of talks about that a little bit. I wish I would have played it sooner, but let's take a listen. It's called Bedspread. Ooh, I love this soundtrack. This was one of the games to get with Myst. It was this and Myst were the killer games for about 1983 CD audio.
CD-ROMs.
CD-ROMs.
Yes.
Myst shipped with a sticker on it that said, better than The Seventh Guest.
I don't know about that, but really?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was any better, though.
Myst did?
Yeah, Myst did.
Oh, my
yeah,
goodness.
First box of it, yeah.
Is that? Well, I suppose it's legal if it happened, but that's...
Did the 11th hour ship with one that says better than Myst? Or that would have been good. Tell us about Seventh Guest.
First general MIDI game. I decided, well, this is going to be my, my Wagnerian ring. So, I mapped out key areas and instruments that applied to each character, and I can't remember specifically what they were, but everybody had their instrument in their key area, and so when they would walk in one at a time, I would play their theme, I would change to their key, I would play their instrument, and then I found that was a really good guideline for composing throughout. So if I got a cutscene, cutscenes. There was no such thing as a cutscene. We didn't know what to call them. I did Seventh Guest and I did Wing Commander. They both were like the first two games with cutscenes. So there was an argument, what do we call these things? And so,
what did you call them?
Well, I suggested that we call them finite amount of theater, because I have the gall. Yeah, so we get a cutscene, and I would try to score it that way. I want to plug something too. There's a
Yes, please.
it's not. I don't profit off of these things, but I'm kind of excited about them. One of them is that they're coming out with Seventh Guest VR.
Oh,
And
wow.
I got to play guitar on one track, and they're going to recycle a couple of my tunes on there. I'm maybe not supposed to say that. And then there's another original soundtrack, which I haven't heard, but I bet it's good. It looks very promising. So Seventh Guest fans, look into that. I think it's going to be pretty awesome. And then there's another thing coming out. It's a Kickstarter. I want you guys to get on this. Get on this Kickstarter. It's a 4-album vinyl set of industrial rock remakes of the music from the Seventh Guest. It's called Soup's On. And it sounds so freaking great. So get on that and back it. It's about $4,000 away from making it. I think it's got like 7 days. So get on there and
Wow.
put in $25 or whatever it is.
Four
Four
vinyls?
albums. It's going to be sick. So, yeah.
Hopefully this can go out before the closing date.
There's no way it's gonna make
we
it
can get
out.
this
We'll put it on our Discord and whatnot so people can hear about it. But yeah, the recording it'll be too late. But anybody here in the audience, please, absolutely
So
go check
hopefully, everybody listening, you've ordered yours and it's already been backed and ready and shipping out soon. So, no, I don't think it's going to be out that late, right?
Oh, another thing about Seventh Guest. It was the first time that that a game shipped with the soundtrack. At least in the game, it was on this new thing called CD-ROM, and it was the first kind of game that took up all the space on a CD-ROM. So it was a whole new thing, and so when I was doing all the general MIDI music for it, that was an innovation. And then I said, hey, on the CD-ROM, can I put like real music on there? And sure, fat man, whatever you say. And so I wrote extra music. It's something that Adam is always doing, Adam Government, and it's a great thing to do, is just give it a little extra quality, because I believed in the project. And so they had to make phone calls to figure out if you could put music on a CD-ROM. At the last minute, they were going to cut it out, and I had to hook them up with a CD-ROM expert to show them that they actually could do it. But
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Music on a CD-ROM. Here's a track from Pajama Sam 3. Let's take a listen. All right, this is a remastered version of Pajama Sam 3. It was called Sam's Room. I looked up the original. Then the remastered one was called IR Sam. Tell us about Pajama Sam.
Well, they had some technology. Humongous had some technology that I think it started in Putt-Putt Saves the Zoo, where they could do actual instruments, which was very early on. It was in 8-bit mono, 22K, but actual instruments. So on that one, that's me playing Cousin Ernie, which is a nice gold Gretsch 58 White Falcon. It's gold sparkle. It's here. I'm going to play it tomorrow at the pool
party, 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. You're going to be playing with Robbie Benson of the Super Soul Bros.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Oh,
He's
man.
a great musician. He'll support you. You'll sound great.
What's a pool if you can't get over your head? And
I like it.
And that's me playing around with playing trumpet too. So I'm just having fun, and bongos. So I'm just having fun laying stuff down. We also got some very cool jazz cats in on that.
This
gig.
whole soundtrack is awesome. It's on Bandcamp. You can listen to everything. There's like different versions of every area too. So definitely check that out.
I'm
We'll put
definitely
links
going to
in the
buy
show
this one. It swings. That's
It's really good.
great tune.
It's really good. I don't remember the game. Did you ever play? I played Pajama
I-
Sam, but I never played.
I did not.
Some of the later ones.
No, I was aware of it just broadly. I saw it on the shelves and whatnot. But I do want to say, Brian, just for a time check, I want to make sure we have time for a few audience questions.
Well,
So
that was
we're-
my last track.
Oh, well then perfect. So,
the one
yeah.
thing though, I have one last slide here that I want to put up on the screen. I thought this was really cool.
Read the title of this one too. So yeah.
Yeah, the Manifesto. I saw this on, you had an archive website, and it was on there, and I just thought that this was really cool. Multimedia is a frontier for music. Along with the internet, multimedia will become important in a way that is historically significant for tremendous numbers of opportunities for and different and new ways of listening to, creating, and interacting with music. As the settlers come to this frontier, it is incumbent upon us pioneers to make sure that this becomes a place that is free and open for musical expression. It is Team Fat's intention that the music in this place be expressive, touching, and made for the sake of the human spirit, not repetitive, imitative, mechanical by convenience, nor needlessly enslaved by styles imposed by fashion or limited machinery. I thought this was awesome. The music precedents we set and the tools we use to help create, the clothes we wear, the cars we drive, and the things we should say, or we say, should all promote this vision. This was the one thing that I thought was like the coolest thing I have seen in game audio for a very long time. I think this speaks to everything that you had been saying for the last 45 minutes, and it's a very awesome way to kind of wrap things up.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I had to dig deep for this one, but you should put this on your new website too if it's not there.
I feel like the game audio community has really carried forth that spirit. They may not have read this, but I feel like, yeah, and yeah, please, absolutely. And I want to call out a few people who are in our audience here. We have Chase Bethia and we have Mason Lieberman.
Yes.
I mean, these guys are, in one sense or another, following in your footsteps.
And Adam Gubman.
And Adam Gubman. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with Adam, but yes, it is just so inspiring. We are here at MAGWest every year. I'm so re-energized by talking to you and seeing all of the people that are here to just hear about this world of music and games. You know, it's just this beautiful thing. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that.
It is a beautiful thing. No. You speak the truth. It's good to remind the world that it's beautiful, and that's what you're doing. So that's why you said it.
Yeah.
Awesome. We can leave us some questions. These are just some links. If you wanted to, if you can't look at the show notes or whatever later, these will be in the show notes. But fatman.com. It's also, I think that forwards from songsforgames.com, the Fat Man Team Fat Bandcamp.com, and then us, pixelatedaudio.com. Cool. Any questions from any folks out there?
We
Don't
have
be shy.
come on up to the microphone. Ask George anything. Ask us if you care, but you know.
I gotta say, thank you for all of the wonderful music from Maniac Mansion to 7th Guest 11th Hour. Is there anything that, like, you hear it now and you're like, man, that is such a banger. I'm still in love with that one particular track.
I'm a sucker for that. Thanks for asking that. I also have the gift of a very poor memory, so it all hits me fresh whenever I hear it. There is one track. It's like a bonus track. I think it is something about the train puzzle or something like that. It's a bonus track at the end of the 7th Guest thing on Bandcamp. It was kind of an unused track. So the bonus track, not the last bonus track, which is this great big medley, but it's called the train puzzle or something like that, and it's really pretty sick. I usually get excited about it.
Yeah.
Oh well, look at you! It's not on the CD though. It's only on the Bandcamp. Yeah. Oh wow, you got that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Bonus points.
Yeah, there's a lot of the stuff because a lot of it's random, and you can tell I've got the capacity to like bad stuff too. So I just like it's like that makes me laugh. Oh, a banger! That's a banger in its own way.
Love that rad gravity.
Oh yeah.
Does that answer your question all right?
I mean, if it makes you feel something, there's no bad stuff.
Yeah, if it makes you feel like there's no bad stuff. It's just where does it fit?
Yeah. Or where does it give you some feeling? Like it doesn't even have to fit. Sometimes that's why it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a question. Basically, like I'm curious about what you think about the relationship between composers and sound designers and how that's kind of like changed over the years, and if that's influenced like how you start a new song as a composer.
Just to reiterate that, the difference, or what's the relationship between sound composers and sound designers, and
Yeah.
how that's changed over the years?
Yeah.
Cool.
And how it influences your approach to music. I think if I caught that last bit, yeah.
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 Well, you know, sometimes when in the day, we would get hired to do composing. Thank you for the question. I hope I can cover it well. In the day, we would get hired sometimes to do sound design, sometimes to do composing, and sometimes both. We did not pay attention to how it was done in other places. Sometimes it was very random. In fact, it was so random when I was doing it, the relationships, that when the Art Institute asked me to advise on instituting the first game sound courses, I said, you can't do it. I said, it changes from game to game and company to company. It can't be taught. There's nothing standard about it. You make it up as you go. So I kind of missed a boat there. But that was the truth for how I saw it. There was no system. So if there's any system now, that's the contrast, and that's what's changed. And these days, I don't usually get hired to do both. Usually, I just get hired to do one or the other, and whoever hires me for one is oblivious to the fact that I do the other. So I can't really relate it to what's really happening in the industry. And still, I have this fundamental belief that it's not as systematic as people who say it's systematic say it is. I feel it varies from client to client, and if somebody says this is the way it's done or this is the way you do it, take that with a grain of salt. You can always and I'm seeing a thumb up from Adam, who knows he's in
all
there.
these-
So and one from Mason. So that's from the.
All these job titles are just a lie. They're a blanket for
Yeah.
what actually gets done. Thank you. What was your name?
My name's Justin.
Justin, and I'm sorry, I forgot to ask.
My name's Aaron.
Aaron.
Aaron,
Okay,
got
Aaron,
it.
Justin, thank you.
Yeah, that's going backwards. Come, yeah.
So it's kind of a two-part question, but it refers to your work on Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
Yeah,
exactly.
It still pops into my head every now and again.
Yep.
It's so good. When you were composing the music for that game, did you have an idea for which system would be the preferred sound? Because the SNES version and the Genesis version are extremely different in terms of sound chip design. Which do you prefer?
I'm not familiar with the Genesis version. I wasn't the main composer. Joe McDermott was, my best buddy. We were absolutely composing for the Super Nintendo. The way that we did it was we got a system, and we didn't do very many games this way. We got the hardware, and we struggled with the composing environment. And what we ended up doing was we used an emulator, an EMU sampler, which is kind of an exotic thing, EPS maybe. And we made little samples. We made our own little tiny samples. We played MIDI into that, got it sounding kind of how we wanted, and then we took those samples and imported them into and chopped them up and looped them so that they would work for Super Nintendo. So we only heard it on Super Nintendo. So that was the limit of our control. And then once we shipped that, I think that the Super Nintendo sounded pretty close to what we were doing on the emulator. And then whatever happened on the Genesis, sorry.
Good. I like the Genesis version more.
Oh, okay.
So,
But I bet that answers your question. That feels pretty solid.
Yeah, no.
Okay, thanks for asking. That's cool. It never occurred to me to even think about that.
It's so funny how back then you said, there were not really any tools. I'm just going to go this really obscure path to get the sound that we wanted.
Get her done.
Now there's like a tool for everything, and you have to follow the specific order. But back then it was just like, whatever we can plug in and make sound. I guess that works.
Yeah, one of the reasons that Warhol was doing all these Nintendo games when he called me back up, from the dead, was that he had cracked the code and he had tools to do music for Nintendo and Game Boy, and he was the only guy in the United States who could do it. So, and I was
Wow.
I was his buddy. So, so that was another random path. And I had suggested to him that we use MIDI as a way to get the music into his software. So big innovation there, I guess.
Nice.
Hi, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about
Oh
this
my God, where did you get that
Team
thing?
Fat coloring book.
Oh my God, I saw that online. I wanted it so bad.
Yeah, I saw this.
Oh yeah.
I saw this a few days ago. I am extremely jealous. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
Team Fat coloring
personification.
book.
That first building on there. Okay, you guys should get a look at this. The Team Fat coloring book, that on the dusty old info trail. That first building on there is a stylized version of the ranch house in Leander, where we did Putt-Putt Saves the Zoo.
Oh, that's
And this is sort of about us. It's sort of a symbolic representation of the team and our battle against the evil industrial people like Bill the Client, who we made look like Bill Gates, and we conflated that with getting snakes out of the sound cards. So that was kind of the story of of making the general MIDI standard work by having the Fat Labs project to give the FAT seal of approval. And the moral of the story is, don't forget the code of the West, kids. Do the right thing. Do it in your cowboy clothes, and you'll be back for more. And Bill the Client says, wow, the best music yet. Where does he get his inspiration? And then we get our inspiration from hot rods and cars and stuff like that. So thank you for
Oh
bringing
my
that
God,
up,
thank you
man.
for
I'll bring
bringing
a
that up
stack
here.
of
What
it.
was
If
your
I
name?
come back to one of these things, I'll bring a little
Brandon?
stack of them.
Brian. Okay.
Thank you, Brian. Where did
Thank
you
you,
get
Brian.
it?
So I bought Team Fat's entire discography of material collected several years back.
Ah,
It's sort of a freebie that just threw in there. I didn't know I was going to get it.
well, thank you. That is very cool. Did I
Wow,
sign
and
it?
Yeah. Do you want to get a signed
should
copy
get a
after
sign.
this?
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, after
We'll,
sure,
we'll,
big time.
we'll make time for that. We got 2 more questions. Come on up.
All right, George, big fan. Love the hat, love the suit, everything about it.
Just
You're
building
my
up
personal
to-
hero.
Likewise.
You've been working for a very long amount of time. North of about 40 years or so at this point. And I feel reasonably confident saying a lot of NDAs have expired at this point. So, as we both know, you work in game audio long enough, you work on a lot of things that don't make it to the finish line. So, what is a story of something that never came out or never happened, or, the paperwork is sealed, you're good to go at this point, but no one has ever asked you about it? Because they don't know about it.
Well, there's a lot of stuff. I was running audio at Magic Leap, which was what the world's, on the cover of Wired magazine, it was both the world's most secretive startup and the world's most exciting startup. The world's most secretive startup on the cover of the magazine. And there was some stuff that went on there that actually I think I'm not going to cross that line because those lawyers are still there and they're vicious.
waiting. They're just sitting there waiting for
Yes,
you to
the
say
badger
something.
lawyers call those lawyers sharks. But I think as far as things that never came out, there was one that was heavy that I really wish had happened. Dan Bunton, we talk about games are supposed to bring people together, but they cause a lot of loneliness these days, or they're related to loneliness. Dan Bunton wrote Mule, the game Mule.
Oh.
And he was dedicated to having people play side by side. The instructions, it was 4 players on Atari 800, and the instructions involved, nudge the person next to you and grab and throw off their joystick motions and things like that. and he was very dedicated to that kind of gameplay. It was a life force for him because he realized that he was a woman, and that he became Danielle. He presented as Danielle Barry later in life, and was one of our first trans people, and was just a gorgeous, great, big-hearted friend who dedicated to that vibe, and was accepted in a time where just there wasn't a lot of acceptance going on. I loved her as a great friend. She basically worried and smoked herself to death, but before she did that, she was working on Mule 2. And I think really and we got to rewrite the theme, and we got to rewrite new music for that. and we had a cartridge for it, which is I think has been revived recently, and it was a beautiful piece, and I believe that because Electronic Arts wanted to put guns and bombs in it, that was what caused her to basically smoke herself to death. So that's a little bit of dirt from the bottom, but it's a hard story. But I also think it's good to put it out there because she represented what was really strong and kind of a moral compass in some ways.
That's awesome.
It's an amazing story.
Oh, you didn't say your name either. There's like 2,000 people listening at home, so you got to at least say your name.
Oh, God. Hi, I'm Mason.
Okay,
Thank you, Jason.
Mason.
And last but not least,
Yes, winner of our prize from last year's MAGWest, I should say.
oh, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, and before we say hello, AJ,
Hi.
folks on our podcast, we know Rage Cage, another fellow podcast host. Hello.
Yeah, I run AJ, Rage Cage. I run BG Emporium. And actually, you guys, I mean, I've told you this before. I'm going to say it for everybody who's here right now. You were my first VGM podcast, I'd probably say 5 years ago now. Woohoo! And you're kind of like 1/3 of the inspiration for me starting my own podcast. The other being, XVGM and Rhythm and Pixels. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank
so
you
now,
so much.
I have
Thank
a
you.
very silly little question for you, George. I did an episode called NES in the West, which was asked for me to do by another podcaster because I did one focusing on the expansion chips of the NES. I featured a song from Maniac Mansion, Dave's theme, and I credited you, but in hindsight, doing some research, I saw Dave Warhol's name coming up, so I'm not sure. I want to just, for my own sake, I want to know, was it you or Dave that did Dave's theme in Maniac Mansion?
Is Dave the surfer?
That was Jack.
We can
That
probably
was
pull
Jeff.
that one up real quick,
That was
right?
Jeff.
I think
I think Dave's
greaser-looking
theme.
guy.
There was another Dave, and that I wasn't involved with. So there was Dave Warhol, another Dave. I'm sorry, I don't know his name. I think that guy did Dave's theme. I did the surfer guy theme. We did Razor's theme. Dave Govett did the nerd music.
Okay.
Actually, I'm hoping to do.
If you had a video, you need great.
Sorry.
I'm hoping to do the Jeff's theme tomorrow at Poolside.
Yes. Please make it out to that. It's going to be an amazing 2-hour set of a lot of great music.
This one?
Yeah, that's the one. There's a couple of cover bands that do that one. We don't do that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's us.
So that was somebody else that was outside.
Somebody else, and I'm sorry. I wish I remember his name. I don't really have a personal
Okay.
relationship with him, but
Mystery
Dave
goes
produced
on.
it. Dave Warhol produced it.
Thanks, AJ.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, thank
Awesome. Rapid fire. 5 lessons you were forced to learn in game audio. Go.
Oh, geez. I learn humility. I had to learn boasting.
2.
That's 2?
I had to learn that technology was important and that I couldn't just be lazy. I had to learn that
3.
you don't have to learn all the technology. I got one more.
You got one
Yeah,
more.
one more.
I had to learn that the secret of game audio is kindness.
Hey.
Love it.
Nice. All right, thanks everybody for coming to listen to the panel. Very big thank you to George, the Fat Man Sanger, for joining us today, and everybody for listening at home on however you listen to your podcast. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of MAGWest. We got 2 more days left.
Yahoo! Hey guys, I brought some knickknacks for you. I just got a small stack of them, but these are little cards I had done up for MAGWest, and it's got pictures from the games on the front, and it's got a little QR code for my Bandcamp page on the back. But it's a limited run, and you guys are just in the spirit of those coloring books. Who knows? It might be collectible someday. so there you go. I brought a little stack for you there.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you so
3
much.
different ones. There you go. There's it. Freak. I did that to Michael Land. He showed me the map that they used for the for Monkey Island to map the music to the game, and I grabbed it out of his hand and said, "It's mine now."
Oh, that's the best. I'd make that a pin.
All right, and that is a wrap. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.